Media trust is ridiculously low right now among the American population and probably people all over the world. And there's nothing that's going to fix it. Right now, basically everyone is a pundit, literally everybody. And those who have the most poignant, but I would also say rage-inducing hot takes are the ones who gain a following. So it doesn't matter if you have something smart to add. It doesn't matter if you've got an important point that needs to be made. If it's not a hot take, no one's going to retweet you and you're not going to gain followers. Over the past few days, I've gained something like 10,000 followers on Twitter. I have... So actually, I'll say most of my Twitter following is due to field reporting, right? So the big bulk was Occupy Wall Street. Then another big bulk was the wave of riots related to Black Lives Matter, not directly included. Like, I'm not saying Black Lives Matter was rioting, but it was related to these Black Lives Matter protests. And then Sweden. And then as of recently, covering the Covington story, I've gotten a big burst of followers because I've had righteous indignation. And that's the portion that I'm talking about here. That there is an incentive for people to be inflammatory, to be angry. And it's not even necessarily that people are faking it. It's just that those who are more angry, more inflammatory, are more likely to gain followers, present company included. Well, now we have Kirsten Powers, I believe her name is. She's deleted her Twitter app over harassment claim over Covington criticism. And this is hilarious. First of all, I don't know why this is news, but I thought it would be a good jumping off point to talk about how awful Twitter is and why I'm probably going to be doing more and more to try and get away from this hellscape that is Twitter. It's terrible, seriously. But this woman, hilariously, is complaining about harassment. Okay, I wake up every day to like thousands of messages from people saying the most vile and awful things. And one of the funniest things is I wonder if they'll bring this up, but the Chapo Trap House people, like, they seem to be in love with me. And I don't mean in love like they like my content, they just love talking about me nonstop. I wake up with messages from Chapo Trap House users all the time, just saying things that literally make no sense. Like, I don't understand why, but they're asking to look at my private, my genitals. I don't understand if maybe that's something to do with, like, it's only them. It's only that fan base where they're, like, constantly saying, like, can we check out your junk? And that's why I say they love it, because I don't think it's overly negative. Like, there are some people who say I'm dumb, but a lot of them are just, like, snide hot takes. They're somewhat critical, and then a lot of people who just want to see me naked. So I can only assume that's, like, they're entertained by me or something, right? So this story from The Hill, CNN political analyst Kirsten Powers announced she was deleting her Twitter application on Wednesday after she said she was harassed on the popular platform regarding her criticism of the Covington High School students' interaction with Native Americans, yada yada. She said, "Every day I get up and say no more Twitter and somehow end up back here. I always regret it, deleting the app now. I feel the same way. I actually did delete the app from my phone, and then not a couple days later I reinstalled it for one reason. It's not that I want to tweet, it's that I'm reading other people's tweets. And you can look at who I follow on Twitter. It's like news organizations and certain personalities. So I try to have a mix of, like, left and right, and I want to see the conversation. And that's why I think Twitter is really important. However, you see what happens with Covington. You see what happens with... Okay, so let me just get right to it. This woman, Kirsten Powers, she slandered these kids, and she's probably going to get sued for it. Her tweets are still up. They're still live. And she made false statements of fact, absolutely, and then tried to soften it when called out. So they say the decision by the former Clinton administration official and current USA Today columnist comes after she blamed the Covington High School students for disrespecting an indigenous elder while criticizing some media outlets for playing both sides journalism. Whoa, that's hilarious. Did she really criticize both sides journalism? That's funny. That's funny because she's CNN. She's at CNN. Political analyst. Is that what it says? Is it political analyst at CNN? So you're saying that CNN doesn't believe in objective journalism. I wonder what CNN would have to say about that. Both sides journalism. Anybody who criticizes the idea of both sides journalism is a partisan extremist. Plain and simple. And I'll tell you what, there's only really one faction who is angry at the idea of both sides. It's literally the far left. And now, dare I say, it's becoming the mainstream left. And I keep asking my left-wing friends, who seem to be living in Wally world, who aren't paying attention to what's literally on CNN and on New York Times and on the Washington Post, how are you going to tell me that these people are not mainstream and they're a fringe minority when the Washington Post, the New York Times, when the New York Times hired Sarah Jong, it's like, dude, listen, I understand. Throughout my career, I've been kind of on the forefront, okay? I've always been ahead. I was the first person, it's my understanding that I'm the first person to use an aerial drone for a live news broadcast. In fact, I don't even know if anyone's done a live drone broadcast at all since. I'm sure some people have, but I actually, during Occupy Wall Street, streamed live from an AR drone. We'd make magic happen. And I actually worked with the Northeastern Drone Coalition to pick their test site. The point is, I'm getting off on a tangent. I'm frequently doing things ahead of everybody else, so it's entirely possible. Forgive me for if that sounded like I was being a braggart. I apologize. That wasn't my intent. But I'm often in front of these big cultural shifts, and that's why I've been successful in news. I'm on the ground at places before the story breaks because I can see what's happening. And so when I say the mainstream left is being dominated by an identitarian, regressive, reactionary sect, it is. Okay, so let's take a look at this woman, Kirsten Powers, who's upset with both sides' journalism. Okay, that's freakish. Okay, that's terrifying. CNN, it is infecting them. It's Sarah Jong's already at the New York Times. Let's look at her tweet. Here's what she said. Robbie Sove says, I don't contend the kid's behavior was perfect, but one of the two people not reacting perfectly at all times in the midst of a highly charged political situation is a far cry from the earlier charges of targeted racist harassment. She said, is that what you call referencing a black classmate as N-word, not reacting perfectly? Well, as anybody who's watched any of the content knows, not one of those kids referred to their classmate, made reference to, in any way, the N-word. Not one. In fact, when the Hebrew Israelites started yelling, they booed, pulled the kid in, and started jostling and hugging him, saying, we love you, man, or something to that effect. The kid's clearly friends with them and was having a good time. And it actually really breaks my heart that you have this predominantly white group of people from suburban Kentucky who do have friends who are minorities, and they're respecting and protecting them, booing at these people for insulting their friend. I'm like, that's a sign of unity that I imagine, people back in the day could only hope that a group of conservative white kids would boo at those. Okay, let's talk about this. They're sharing that photo of a black man at a restaurant and a bunch of white kids crossing their arms staring at him, and they're like, that's what happened. Quite literally, it's like the opposite. It's like there's that one black kid in their group and they're hugging him. And that warmed my heart a little bit, and it pissed me off. Well, apparently, Robbie Sove said, the kid didn't utter that reference, the hecklers did. Shortly after that, when the hecklers told the black kid that white people would kill him and steal his organs, his friends embraced him. Didn't seem like they had any racial malice toward him. And then she said, I didn't say they uttered it, I said they referenced it by holding up fingers. What? Literally makes no sense. It sounds to me like what she's trying to do here is soften her false statement. It's just because they held up fingers? Literally, what does that mean? It's because one of the hecklers said something like, you've got one N-word in the crowd, and some kid held up two. And she's claiming that meant the kid was referring to the kids. No. That's insane. So anyway, this woman, here's what else she tweeted. I agree with Talking Points memo editor John Marshall that watching all the videos, which I did, does not change the fundamental problem. The boys disrespecting an indigenous elder. The people harassing me to change my mind cannot convince me. I didn't see what I saw. Learn to respect the difference of opinion. And this is why Babylon Bee, which is a satirical news site, said that CNN's new motto, which is now the most trusted name in news, was being changed to Orange Man Bad. I'll tell you what happened. I watched the video. I didn't have any idea what was going on, and I didn't attribute malice to either group. The only reason Kirsten Powers believes she's seeing young kids harassing and disrespecting a Native man is because she's a racist. Quite literally, when you look at the greater context, one of the most important things that people haven't brought up too much, that kid Nick Sandman, I think his name is, when Nathan Phelps is banging in his face, there's a point at which his friend is arguing with one of the natives. Sandman turns to him and goes, no, and he makes the cut it off sign, stop, don't do this. Clearly trying to diffuse the tensions. You want to call that harassment. The reality is, according to a long write-up by The Atlantic, the kids were dancing to Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes. Dun, 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 dun. And they're all jumping up and laughing and hooting. And when the native guy comes in banging the drum, the kids were happy. They were like, yeah, we got a drum beat, and they're all excited. These kids don't, when you look at the greater context, it looks like they're actually having a good time with Mr. Phillips. And then the media framed it as though they didn't like him. And that's crazy. Because when you look at the Nick Sammons version of events, when you look at him doing the cutoff gesture to his friend, like, stop, don't argue with him. You look at the bigger picture of the Hebrew Israelites. You look at the kids embracing the one black friend that they have in their crowd. It looks like it's just a bunch of kids being kids, having a good time, totally oblivious to the wider implications. They're wearing MAGA hats. You think those kids understand anything about what it means to wear a MAGA hat? Not really. It's a tribal symbol. They're probably from a conservative Catholic area. They are. And so they wore the hats because older people, like, they all do it. It's just tribal politics. But the thing is, these people on the left, like Cursed Powers, see that hat. Alyssa Milano said it's the new KKK hood. Well, there you go. They don't care about what actually happened. It's a white kid in a hat. And this, look, it's coming. Like, people keep saying, like, I'm being hyperbolic. There's a reason why I brought up being on the forefront of these politics, and in front of, like, Occupy Wall Street and all these big events. I've been tracking these things. I've been on the ground at these things. There's a reason why I've been able to be on the ground at all of these big breaking stories. Why I was on the ground at Ferguson when all this stuff lit up, and the journalists came days later. It's because they're slow. Like, I don't mean mentally. I mean, like, incompetent, right? They're not skilled enough for this, and they can't make accurate predictions. They look at the surface level outcome and make presumptions without digging deeper. Think of it like a chess game, and this is how I approach how I plan and make content and travel. I look at an incident, and then I say, what are the likely possible outcomes from what we'll see? And there could be 5. Each one of those 5 has 5 more, and you need to look at all of the possible outcomes to calculate where you think we're headed. That's why, in my opinion, I think one of the highest probabilities we'll see in the coming years is going to be insurgent civil conflict. A lot of people have said, Tim, it was way worse in the past. Sure, depends on what you're talking about. The LA riots were huge. We can look at the Weather Underground. That was really big too. I'm not saying it's going to be worse or better or anything like that. I'm saying as of right now, in our present context, in our current politics, it will get worse. Not that it's going to be worse than it was 50 years ago. Violent crime's actually way down. Terror is all way down. I'm just saying it's escalating. And in my opinion, and I could be wrong, because all I'm doing is making a calculated prediction, meaning I think there's a high probability chance that we see some civil conflict. And there was actually a story, maybe I should do another video about this, because I've talked about it quite a bit, where I can't remember which outlet asked a bunch of intelligence specialists what the likelihood of a civil war in the United States would be in the next decade, and I think they said something like between 35 and 80%. Like, one guy said it was 90%. One guy said it was like 30, and they said ultimately that I think it was like a 30. No, I think it was greater than half, a greater than chance probability that they all predicted a civil war. I need to look at it, but basically a lot of people believe there will be a civil war in this country. It's not going to look like anything we've seen in the past. Technology is very different. Who knows what will happen? I have no idea how I started talking about this on a thread about a woman who's getting off Twitter, but the point is, she said something about the effect of, what did she say? I want to find that thing. Whatever. She said something along the lines of, I know what I saw, or people are trying to convince me of something that I saw with my own eyes. Oh God, where is it? Whatever. Anyway, the point she was making is that she said, people are trying to convince me of something I saw with my own eyes. Yes. When 2 people watch the same video and see something completely different, there's no mending that. There's none. Like, you can try and talk to her all day and night. I had friends who refused. So there you have it. It's coming. I could be wrong. I don't know. But stick around. I'll have some more videos coming up today. 1 p.m. on this channel, 4 p.m. on my main channel, youtube.com/Timcast. I'll see you then.